What is normal healthy breathing? As I mentioned before, normal healthy breathing is breathing about 6 liters of air per minute. But of course, most of us don't think in terms of liters of air, and we're not going to go measure our lung capacity, or at least most of us aren't going to do that. Basically, if you are taking relatively shallow breaths and you're just sitting there working or maybe even walking slowly, again, not talking or engaging in any kind of speech or eating, chances are 6 liters of air per minute is about 12 shallow-ish breaths. And when I say shallow, I don't mean, breathing like a little bunny rabbit or something like that. I just mean, casually breathing in, out, in, out. The studies that have explored the breathing patterns in large populations of individuals who are not suffering necessarily from any one specific ailment have shown that most people breathe far too much per minute, that they're engaging in anywhere from 15 to 20 or even 30 shallow breaths per minute. So they are vastly over-breathing relative to how they should be breathing. Now, of course, if you breathe more deeply, so you take a vigorous inhale and then you expel that air, well then to get 6 liters of air into your system per minute, you're probably only going to need somewhere between 4 and 6 breaths in order to get that 6 liters per minute. Now, the total time that it takes to do that inhale and exhale isn't that much longer than a kind of shallow breath, provided you're not deliberately breathing quickly during those shallow breaths. So then you say, well, how is it that normal healthy breathing that delivers the appropriate amount of carbon dioxide into the system and doesn't exhale too much carbon dioxide, how are we supposed to do that normal breathing, right? Are you supposed to breathe 4 times and then hold your breath until the minute passes? No. What you find is that the correct pattern of breathing is going to involve 2 things. First of all, nasal breathing, because of the resistance it provides through the nose that we talked about earlier, is going to deliver more oxygen into your system. You're going to be able to generate more air pressure to fill your lungs. That greater air pressure is going to take longer to exhale. So already we're increasing the amount of time that each breath is going to take. And also what you find is that people that are breathing in the proper healthy manner, that is, that are balancing oxygen and carbon dioxide in the proper ways, are also taking pauses between breaths. This is extremely important because even though we have a brain center, the Prebot-Singer complex, that can control, or I should say does control, inhale, exhale, rhythmic breathing, those pauses between breaths are not always present. In fact, often are not present from people's baseline breathing patterns, and as a consequence, they overbreathe. And as I told you before, when people overbreathe, their brain becomes hyperexcitable at the level of the background noise, and yet they are less efficient at detecting and learning information. We'll get into the specific studies that really illustrate the learning aspect a bit later, but they are less efficient at detecting and learning information, at focusing, and so on, as a consequence of this overbreathing and the hyperexcitability that causes. Now, of course, that's also just emphasizing the effects of overbreathing and lack of carbon dioxide on the brain. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of studies showing that when we don't have enough carbon dioxide in the tissues of our body, that's also problematic for all the tissues, the liver, the lungs themselves, the stomach, etc., that relate largely to shifts in pH because of the fact that carbon dioxide strongly regulates the acidity, alkalinity of the blood and the tissues that blood supplies nutrients to, including carbon dioxide. So the basic takeaway here is you want to breathe in a healthy manner at rest. And the best way to do that is to spend some time, and it doesn't take much, maybe a minute or so each day, paying attention to how quickly you are breathing per minute. When you are simply at rest, when you're making coffee in the morning, when you're sitting down to read, when you're on social media. Chronically holding your breath isn't good, but neither is overbreathing. And again, every study that has examined the typical patterns of breathing and patterns of breathing that show up as normal and abnormal has found that more often than not, during the nighttime, people are underbreathing, and in the daytime, they are overbreathing, they're hyperventilating.